was just trying to get away. A solo road trip, a few hours off the grid, and maybe a little clarity after everything that just happened. The silence of the open road seemed like a better therapist than any I could afford. There's just no closure when people vanish. You can even start moving on when they die in a car crash or after a long illness, but when they just disappear, it's like your soul doesn't know what to do. Claire, my fiancée, was supposed to meet up with her friends at a remote cabin in the woods for her bachelorette party. No technology, she had told me while packing socks into her rolled up yoga mat so that everything would fit better in her duffel. Claire was like that. She never liked carrying more than one bag, and she'd do almost anything to make it work. They were all going to meet up at the cabin since they were coming from different parts of the country. But when the others arrived, and there was no sign of Claire by the next day, panic ensued. When I got the call, I didn't scream, I didn't shout. I just stood there, frozen. For the first time in my life, I couldn't find my voice. Claire was missing. "Did you two have an argument before she left?" the officer asked me when I made the report. That was when I knew I had to do this myself. I had the GPS set to avoid tolls and highways, just like Clara had done. We always shared location, so I was going to follow her route for the 100th time in the 3 months since she disappeared. I was going to follow it until I got to the point where her GPS stopped. Maybe this time I'll find something. That's how I found myself in Larkeridge. It wasn't even on the map at first, just a faded sign of a 2-lane road. "Welcome to Larkridge, established 1891. Population." The number had been worn away. Might have said 600. Might have said 60. The trees pressed in close on both sides, tall and skeletal in the cold spring light, their branches forming a kind of tunnel over the road. I remember the way the wind died down as I drove under them, like even the air wasn't allowed in without permission. The town appeared like it had been dropped there and forgotten. One main road, a scattering of side streets, a diner, a gas station that still had analog pumps, an old movie theater with peeling paint and a marquee that read, "Coming soon," but no movie title beneath it. I figured I'd grab coffee, maybe stretch my legs. I hadn't spoken to another human being in 6 hours, unless you count the voice on Google Maps. There was something slow about the town, not just quiet, slow. People moved like they were underwater. A woman stood outside the hardware store, smoking and staring blankly at a delivery truck that never seemed to finish parking. An old man swept the front of a barber shop, over and over, the same patch of concrete. No one smiled. No one looked at me long enough for it to count. And every child seemed to be asleep in a stroller, even though it was a sunny afternoon. And even though they all looked too old to still be using a stroller. I parked at the diner, picked up the stack of missing posters with Claire's face on it, and went in. Inside, the atmosphere was somehow heavier, like stepping into a room where someone had just said something awful and everyone was pretending they didn't hear it. The waitress, a thin woman with tired eyes and a name tag that just said M, brought me black coffee without asking. I tried to ask about the town, where I was, how far to the next main road, but she just shook her head slightly, as if I'd asked something too complicated to answer. Then I pulled out a picture of Claire. "Have you seen this woman?" I asked. She stared at the photo for a moment too long, but she didn't answer. She just set my coffee down and walked away. There was a man and a woman having blueberry pancakes a few tables away from me. They had a sleeping child in a stroller, too. The child seemed to be about 8 or 9. His knees were too high in the stroller. He had obviously outgrown it years ago. I shifted in my seat to get a better look at the child. He almost didn't look alive. Pale, papery skin, barely visible breathing. And was that some sort of tube coming out of his sleeve and disappearing underneath the carrier? I drank half the coffee, paid in cash, left a tip and a couple of Claire's posters on the table. No one said goodbye. Back in the car, I checked my GPS. It told me to take the next right, and that's when I noticed it. The route had shifted again, longer than before, a loop almost. The next few turns didn't make sense. Right, then right again, then another right. That's when it started. At first, I didn't notice. The voice on my phone kept saying, "Take the next right," even when a left would have shaved time. I thought it was rerouting for traffic or road work. After a few minutes, I realized something really was off. No one was turning left. Not one single car. They'd drive past where they clearly needed to go, loop around entire blocks just to avoid turning left. I saw a mail truck circle the same street twice before it finally pulled into a driveway from the right. A woman pushing a stroller came to a four-way stop and literally crossed 3 sides of the intersection to get to the sidewalk on her left. At first I thought maybe it's some weird local law, a traffic thing. I googled it. Nothing. But the deeper I got into town, the more wrong it felt. Every store, gas station, and cafe was on the right side of the road. Every street corner had wide, sweeping intersections like roundabouts, clearly built to make right turns easier. It wasn't just preference, it was infrastructure. Deliberate. But then I tried turning left anyway. The moment I clicked on my signal, the GPS glitched. Not froze, glitched. Like it was resisting. The map pixelated and a warning flashed briefly. Route not permitted. I laughed, out loud, because who's ever seen a GPS refuse a turn? I've even once seen a GPS image of my Uber driver pretty much driving on water on the map, but I continued straight. The town didn't have a name on the map, just a blank patch of County Route 11 surrounded by pines. The only signage was the physical signpost that seemed hand-painted and ancient. Gas station, diner, library, all clean, all quiet, too quiet. I pulled over at a gas station this time. I needed to talk to someone. The man behind the counter smiled like it hurt. "Passing through?" he asked, stirring cream into his own untouched cup. "Just driving," I said. "Weird town. GPS won't let me turn left." His eyes flicked to the window. "You shouldn't try." I smiled, assuming he was joking. "What happens if I do?" He didn't answer. No one would. I approached him and placed one of the posters in front of him. "Have you seen her?" I asked. "She's missing, and I think this town is the last place her GPS was active." He barely glanced at the picture, but the corner of his mouth twitched uncomfortably. "Please," I said. "She's not here," he grunted. "Do you mind if I put some of these up then?" I asked, but he just grunted non-committally, and I took that as a yes. The boy packing the shelves and the other customers all avoided eye contact. I tried asking a young woman with a little girl of about 4 years old clinging to her fingers about the roads. She pretended not to hear. I decided to leave her alone. That was the first child I'd seen that was awake, walking. Something about that set me at ease. Maybe this town just had a more than usual number of children with special needs. Happens sometimes, I guess. We've all heard of locations where secret government experiments happened and left the whole town changed. I was outside back at my truck when I saw it. There was a delivery truck circling the block twice just to make a right into the alley. Not one left. "You can't go left!" A thin, tinny voice came from behind me. I swirled. It was the little girl, maybe 4, standing alone. Her mother was nowhere in sight. "What?" I said stupidly. "What do you mean?" Her eyes were too focused, too aware. She wasn't smiling. "Don't go left." She just repeated her warning. Her voice was childlike, but her expression wasn't. "What happens if I do?" I asked. I knelt down, panic prickling beneath my skin, but before she could speak, her mother appeared, like she'd been standing there all along. She grabbed the girl's hand and yanked her back. The look she gave me wasn't angry, it was afraid. I watched them go. I started noticing more things. The town had no left turn signs, none. Stop signs were placed just slightly askew to steer you clockwise. Children playing on the sidewalk all turned clockwise in their games. Public benches bolted only on clockwise corners, even the birds. Flocks that should have flown randomly circled the town clockwise overhead again and again. I went to the library to get my bearings, more out of instinct than plan. Thought I'd outsmart the GPS. Inside it was dim, dusty, smelled like dry paper and basement mildew. I found an old rack of local maps. Every one of them had been edited by hand, lines scratched out, routes redrawn, entire streets missing. Every route showed rights, no lefts. I was about to leave when I saw it. A piece of notebook paper, yellowed with age, wedged between 2 books. They say the first left is a warning, the second is a mistake, the third means you're his now. No name, no date. I didn't know who he was, but I suddenly felt like I wasn't alone in the aisle. I left the library unsettled. The warning on that paper rattled around in my head like a loose screw. The first left is a warning, the second is a mistake, the third means you're his now. I didn't know who he was, or if I believed in any of it, but I wanted answers, so I did it. I made a left, just one. At first, nothing happened. The sky didn't split open. No thunder, no shadowy figure in the road, just silence. But it was too quiet. The kind that presses against your ears like water. My GPS shut off completely, not froze, just went black. My phone too. A full battery, gone in an instant. That's when I noticed the fog. Thin at first, curling up from the roadside like smoke from a dying fire, then thickening. creeping across the hood of my truck, licking at the windshield like it was alive. And then the cold. Not just a drop in temperature, a deep, bone-rotting chill, like stepping into a freezer and finding out it had a heartbeat. I turned the heat on full blast. Nothing came out. In the passenger seat, my breath fogged the glass. Only I hadn't exhaled yet. There were handprints forming on the inside of the window, small ones. I hit the gas and got out of there, blindly turning right again and again until I broke through the fog. The sun was still out, and the town returned as if it hadn't moved an inch, like it had been waiting. Back at the gas station, the man behind the counter looked up and froze. He didn't even try to hide it. "You did it," he said. I didn't answer. "He shouldn't have done that," he said softly. "That's the first call." "Call to what?" He just stared at me, then nodded toward the back of the store. I followed him. "You want to know what this place really is? Go 2 blocks past the old theater. Look for the red door. Don't knock, just go in." Before I could ask anything else, he was halfway back to his position behind the cash register. It was all so strange and happened so fast that I almost doubted whether it happened at all. It was an unmarked brick building, no signs, no windows, just a chipped red door and the sound of a faint mechanical hum from inside. I shouldn't have gone in. I know that now. The air inside stank of antiseptic and old dust. The hallways were lined with linoleum floors that curved ever so slightly to the right, just like the roads. And then I found the room. Rows of beds, at least 50 of them, maybe more, each with a child lying motionless. Tubes in their mouths, machines breathing for them, monitors blinking slow, steady rhythms. Some of them looked barely older than toddlers. I walked between the beds, heart pounding, stomach curdling. Their eyes were open, all of them, just staring up at the ceiling. No focus, no life, like empty vessels waiting to be filled. At the back of the room, a plaque was bolted to the wall, faded bronze. "The Larkridge Pediatric Revival Wing. May they one day return to us. Established 1991. I took a step back, suddenly dizzy. I needed air. I stumbled out into the hallway, trying to catch my breath. The hallway curved like a ribcage, narrow, sterile, suffocating. No signage, just a series of identical doors with coded keypads and little observation windows covered by dark plastic sliders. I don't know what compelled me to try one, but I did. Inside, a child's hospital room. Monitors beeped steadily, keeping time with the soft mechanical hum of life support. A little boy lay in bed, eyes closed, chest rising in a shallow rhythm. His skin was pale, like candle wax. He didn't move, didn't even twitch. There were more rooms. I counted 7 before I stopped opening them. All the same. Children, unmoving, suspended between life and whatever comes next. Something cold slid through my spine. I stepped back from the last window. I turned a corner trying to find an exit and instead found an office. Inside was a metal filing cabinet and an open binder on the desk, crowded with neatly handwritten notes. One page had a list of names with dates beside them. Some were crossed out. At the bottom, my name, Gracie Walker, pending. My mouth went dry. Another section labeled pairings had photos of children paperclipped to patient charts, each matched with an adult's face and name. I flipped through them until my stomach turned. They weren't just pairing people, they were replacing something. Or completing something. Organ harvesting? I wondered. I found a clipboard resting beside one of the occupied child beds. A girl, maybe 4 years old, blonde with deep bruises under her eyes, like someone who hadn't dreamed in years. The chart hanging off her bed had my name on it. That's when the lights in the hallway flickered. Voices. Footsteps. I stepped out of the administrator's office, heart hammering in my throat, clipboard still in my hand. My name beside a child's photo. A 4-year-old with pale skin and eyes as hollow as the silence that gripped this place. I needed to get out, now. But just as I turned toward the hallway, a distant voice rang out from around the corner. Then another. Footsteps. Calm, measured, not searching, not yet, but approaching. Panic rose in my throat. I ducked into the first door on my right, barely registering the white paint peeling off its edges. The door clicked shut behind me. I turned and froze. The room was cold, bright, surgical. A man lay strapped to a gurney in the center of the room, restrained at the wrists and ankles. Tubes snaked from his arms to IV bags filled with a thick, iridescent liquid that shimmered in unnatural colors. Gold, crimson, even a deep green that seemed to pulse faintly. He wasn't unconscious. His eyes locked with mine immediately, wild, pleading. Muffled groans escaped from beneath duct tape sealing his mouth. I rushed forward, gripping the man's wrist. Still warm, still alive. "I'll get you out," I whispered hoarsely, eyes scanning for buckles or a scalpel. But before I could free even one strap, voices approached, just outside the door now. Too close. I scanned the room. No windows, no exits, only a tall, narrow cabinet in the corner. I slipped inside and shut the door just as the handle began to turn. Light poured into the room. I could still see between the thin crack in the cupboard door. 3 people entered, 2 in dark medical scrubs and 1 in a heavy red cloak embroidered with what looked like veins, branching across the fabric like arteries. They wore masks made of what resembled polished bone, smooth, featureless, hollow eyes. They were pushing a gurney into the room. A child was on it, but he did not seem to be alive. The new gurney came to rest beside the bound man. One of them rolled a small cart into the room. It held a black, sealed vessel, shaped like an urn, and several glass vials filled with a thick, deep red fluid. Another held what looked like bone-handled surgical instruments and polished obsidian stones. The cloaked figure stepped forward, placing a carved wooden bowl on a small tray beside the bed. Inside was a thick ink paste. He dipped 2 fingers in and began to trace runes across the man's forehead, chest, and wrists. The symbols shimmered faintly as they were applied, glowing an ominous blue before sinking into his skin. The restrained man began to convulse. I quietly cupped a hand over my own mouth inside the cabinet. Every instinct screamed to run. The robed figure began to chant in a rhythmic tongue, It was melodic and guttural all at once, like a hymn being sung underwater. He looked like some sort of priest. The words grated on the ears, ancient and cruel. The medical assistants adjusted the IV lines. One of them pulled out a vial from a cooler and injected it into the main line, a deep red fluid that clouded the iridescence. And then it began. The room dimmed, though no one had touched the lights. The man's convulsion stopped. His back arched, mouth open in a silent scream beneath the duct tape. The lights in the room flickered, and for a split second, I swore the shadows in the corners of the room twisted, leaned in. And then something left him. A gray mist leaked from his mouth and eyes, rising into the air. It twisted, hovered, then was gently guided, almost beckoned, toward the obsidian stones, which had begun to pulse with internal light. The woman lifted the black urn, uncorked it, and whispered into its depths. The mist was drawn inside, sucked downward in a slow, spiraling funnel. From the child-sized bed beside the gurney, a sudden gasp. The little boy sat bolt upright, eyes wide and fully alive, drawing in breath after breath like a drowning victim breaking the surface. His eyes shimmered momentarily with that same iridescent green from the IVs. The man on the gurney stilled. The room was deathly silent. The cloaked figure gently laid a hand on the child's chest, then looked at the assistants. The transfer was successful. Dispose of the vessel. The assistants nodded, released the gurney's locks, and wheeled the lifeless man toward a steel chute at the back of the room. With mechanical efficiency, they opened the hatch, tilted the table, and let the body slide down into darkness. I felt bile rise in my throat. They were using travelers, outsiders, as fuel, soul donors, for children who hadn't moved in years, maybe even decades. Children who would never wake up unless someone else died. Once the room cleared, I waited in the cabinet, every muscle screaming, until silence returned. Then, and only then, did I slip out and back into the hall. I didn't know what came next, only that I had to run and never, ever look back. That's when I decided to leave. No pancake, no coffee, no answers. Just out. I tried making a U-turn at the edge of town. My steering locked. I swear it did, like something else had control. I spun the wheel. Nothing. Brakes? Spongy. Engine? Silent. My car turned right on its own. I drove in circles for what felt like hours. Finally, I found a way out, but only by following a sequence of rights that led back to the highway. Just before I made the left turn out of the town, my second left turn at that point, I looked back one last time, and I saw her, a little girl with dark hair being dragged along by an adult, tears streaming down her face. She was looking right at me, and she had Claire's eyes. The apartment was dark except for the shifting glow of Janelle's phone screen. I lay sprawled on the couch, pretending to scroll through emails, but really I was watching her. She hadn't looked up in nearly half an hour. Her face twitched. Laughter, then sudden tears, then laughter again, all in the span of seconds. Jesus, I muttered. You look possessed. Janelle smirked without taking her eyes off the phone. It's empathize. You wouldn't get it. Empathize, I repeated flatly. I'd seen the posters plastered across the subway that morning. Feel more. Live more. A man hugging his kid with a glowing wristband, eyes closed in bliss. Isn't that the thing frying people's brains? Didn't the news say hospital visits were up? She shrugged. Yeah, dehydration, fainting, whatever. People overdo it. Same as drinking. She finally looked up at me, pupils wide, skin faintly glistening with sweat. But when you pace yourself, it's incredible, I snorted. It's still just a feed, right? Scrolling strangers crying into cameras for attention. That got her attention. She leaned forward, her phone's glow cutting sharp shadows across her face. It's not just watching, it's feeling. Look. She tilted the screen toward me. A man was laughing in a sunlit park, holding an ice cream cone dripping down his hand. The caption read, #raw, #blissdrop, #hitmeharder. I don't need to feel some dude's sugar rush. You don't get it, Alex, she said almost reverently. When he laughs, you laugh. When his heart races, yours does. It's like, she searched for the words, like being more human than you've ever been. Like stepping inside someone else's skin for a second. I rolled my eyes, but my chest ached in the silence after her words. More human. You sound like an ad, I said. Ads don't make you cry and then orgasm in the span of 3 minutes. She shot back, grinning. Well, not usually. I shook my head, laughing despite myself. You're insane. Or maybe you're just out of touch. She held up her wrist, flashing the band. Everyone's on this now. Even my boss streams her yoga classes. There are whole influencer tiers already, field streamers. The top ones rake in millions. I tried to brush it off, but curiosity gnawed at me. Everyone at work had been talking about their feeds during lunch, trading recommendations like TV shows. I'd sat silent, fiddling with my sandwich, pretending not to care, but Janelle's eyes were still locked on me, daring me. You want to try it, she said softly, as if she could read the pulse of temptation in my veins. I don't, I lied. Her grin widened. Sure. She went back to scrolling, her expression shifting again. A stutter of emotions I couldn't follow, laughing, frowning, sighing. I turned back to my phone, trying to refocus on my empty inbox, but the glow of hers pulled at the corner of my vision like a lighthouse. And for the first time, I wondered what it would actually feel like. Never wanted to sign up for Empathize, but everyone else had. At first it was just another app, another social platform. Except this one didn't just let you see people's posts, you felt them. They called it emotional streaming. A wearable wristband paired with neural software syncing directly to your vagus nerve. When someone posted a video, you didn't just watch it, you felt what they felt when they recorded it. It sounded invasive, creepy, and maybe a little dangerous for me. When I was 11, my older brother Ryan died in a car accident. One moment he was there, the next he wasn't. After that, it was like someone had pulled a plug inside me. The grief didn't just hurt, it burnt everything else away with it. No joy, no sadness, no real excitement. Just flatness. Years of it. I became good at faking, at mirroring whatever everyone else was feeling. But inside, nothing. That was the real reason I stayed away from empathize. I didn't need some gadget confirming that I was hollow. But Janelle, my roommate, swore by it. "You don't get it, Alex," she told me one night, shoving her band in my face. "It's like human connection distilled, better than therapy, better than sex, honestly." I laughed. "Better than sex? You're saying an app gave you an orgasm?" "Not that kind of better," she rolled her eyes. "But when you feel someone's joy, like really feel it, it fills your whole body. It's addictive in the best way." I wanted to tell her I'd forgotten what joy even felt like. But instead, I just shrugged it off, swore I'd never touch it. Of course, curiosity, predictably, got the better of me. My bedroom was a cave of shadows, lit only by the rectangular glow of my phone. The sheets twisted around my legs were stale with sweat, and the faint scent of takeout containers sat on the nightstand. I hesitated over the download button. Janelle's words echoed. "It's not just watching, it's feeling." The loading circle spun. A Slate corporate jingle whispered through my earbuds. "Welcome to empathize. Feel more. Live more." The app's interface pulsed with color, like breathing. It prompted me. Sync band to begin. I slipped the rented wristband on. A thin plastic strip I'd ordered hours ago with one click. The screen blinked. Scanning baseline emotion. Please relax. I lay back, staring at the ceiling. The room hummed with silence. The app beeped softly, a heartbeat sound. Baseline, 27% contentment, 63% restless, 10% other. "Would you like to explore something new?" My thumb trembled as I hit yes. The feed blew open, rows of thumbnails, laughing faces, crying faces, shaky camera angles tagged with glowing text, hashtag bliss drop, hashtag raw joy, hashtag proposal high, hashtag hit me harder. I scrolled, heart hammering. Each post carried a faint static like electricity, just beyond reach. Finally, I tapped one. Live. Marcus M_87. She said yes. The screen expanded. It hit like lightning. My chest expanded with a rush of helium, a buoyant, unbearable joy flooding my veins. My lungs felt like they might burst, my mouth stretched in a grin so wide it ached. Tears pricked my eyes and spilled hot down my cheeks before I even realized I was crying. I felt Marcus on one knee, the trembling in his hands, the wild thud of his heart, the way the crowd around them erupted in applause. And I was inside it, not watching, not imagining, living. "Holy shit," I whispered, my voice breaking with someone else's joy. I clutched my chest, laughing and sobbing at once. The phone buzzed with reactions. Hashtag bliss drop, Hit me harder, Marcus, or I felt that in my bones. I didn't even notice typing back. Same, same, same. The feed surged as Marcus kissed her. My stomach flipped like I just jumped off a cliff. My whole body pulsed with euphoria so pure it was unbearable, like standing too close to the sun. And then it cut off. The screen dimmed, post ended. I collapsed back against the pillows, drenched in sweat, tears streaking my face, breath coming ragged and shallow. I stared at the ceiling, still grinning, alone in the dark. My cheeks hurt from smiling. Fuck, I whispered. I get it now. The last time I felt happiness like this, Ryan was still here, waiting for me after school so we could walk home together. My phone buzzed again. Recommended for you. Hashtag raw joy. Hashtag pure love. Hashtag hit me harder. And my thumb was already moving. The next morning, I sat hunched over my coffee in the cafe near our apartment, staring at the surface until the swirls of cream looked like they were breathing. My phone rested face down on the table, but I could feel it thrumming faintly, like it wanted me to pick it up. Janelle slid into the chair across from me, hair still damp from the shower. She gave me one look and smirked. You tried it, didn't you? I didn't even try to deny it. I get it now. Her eyebrows lifted. Oh God, which one? The proposal stream, I said, leaning back, letting the words roll around like I was admitting to a guilty pleasure. It was insane, like I don't even have the words. I wasn't watching it, I was in it. I couldn't stop smiling. Janelle laughed, but there wasn't much joy in it. Yeah, that's how it gets you. First hits are always joy bombs. Safe, clean, pure candy. She stirred sugar into her mug, her spoon clinking too hard against the sides. But the feed doesn't stay there. The algorithm pushes you deeper. It rewards intensity. I frowned. Intensity? Think about it. You only clicked one. But when you open your For You page again, it's gonna be stacked with recs. The platform knows what spikes engagement. Pure joy is fine, but it doesn't trend like rage or grief. The strong stuff keeps people hooked. That's what bubbles to the top. She took a long sip, watching me over the rim of her cup. Huh. Don't let it. I snorted, trying to brush it off. Come on, I can handle it. I'm not. I almost said addicted, but that word felt too sharp, too soon. I'm not gonna spiral just because I watched some videos. Janelle leaned forward, lowering her voice. I told myself the same thing. But the feed doesn't just show you. It knows you. It reads your baseline, your micro responses. It knows where you're weakest, where to push. For a moment, the cafe noise around us faded. Just the hiss of the espresso machine, the muffled bass of a song overhead, the smell of scorched milk. I shook my head, forcing a laugh. You sound paranoid. It's an app, Janelle, not some mind-reading demon. But as soon as I said it, I remembered the band pulsing on my wrist the night before, the scan whispering, baseline, 27% contentment, 63% restless, 10% other. It hadn't felt like numbers on a screen. It had felt like being seen. I rubbed the inside of my wrist absent-mindedly. Janelle sighed. Just be careful, okay? You already know about the news stories, people ending up in hospitals, seizures, shock, dehydration. But the comments under those stories? She gave me a thin smile. Worth it. Best ride of my life. People joke about phantom bruises like it's nothing. That's where it goes. Her words lingered, but I forced another smile. Relax. I just wanted to see what all the hype was about. I'm fine. But when I picked up my phone again, the screen lit instantly. Notifications stacked up like gifts waiting to be opened. Recommended for you. Hashtag pure pain. Hashtag gone empty. Hashtag hit me harder. My stomach gave a little flip. The morning commute was the worst part of my day. Crowded subway, stale air, bodies pressed too close. Usually I zoned out with music, but today my phone pulled me in before I even realized I'd unlock it. I told myself I'd just scroll a little. A quick lift before work. At first, it gave me a wedding. A woman's face crumpling with joy as she said, I do. The roar of applause, my chest swelling until I thought it might burst. But almost before I could breathe it in, the next clip hit. A man crying on a dark kitchen floor, ring box still open in his hand. My ribs caved. My throat burned with grief that wasn't mine. My eyes watered in the middle of a packed train car, and I had to press my sleeve against my face, pretending it was allergies. Next swipe, rage. A street argument caught life, someone being shoved. Adrenaline spiked through me so hard my fists curled tight on their own, knuckles white. A stranger beside me flinched when I muttered under my breath, like I was about to swing. Next swipe, an ER waiting room, a mother sobbing into her hands. The sound wasn't even loud, but I felt it in my stomach, deep and nauseating. I hunched over like I was going to be sick. By the time I got to work, my body didn't feel like it belonged to me anymore. At my desk, I tried to bury myself in spreadsheets, but my hands kept trembling on the keyboard, phantom echoes of anger buzzing through my muscles. The numbers swam. I found myself sneaking looks at my phone every few minutes. You're on it too, a coworker asked, leaning over my cubicle wall. He grinned like we shared a secret. Man, I cried to some guy's breakup yesterday. Felt good though, right? Like cathartic. I forced a laugh. Yeah, totally. He clapped me on the shoulder and walked off humming, like it was the most normal thing in the world. At lunch, I couldn't even taste my food. My tongue still carried the metallic tang of someone else's panic. I kept replaying that ER clip in my head. The mother's sobs, the sterile light. But here's the thing, part of me wanted more. More grief, more rage, more intensity. The joy from last night felt flat now, like a balloon gone soft. I told myself it wasn't hurting anyone if I just watched. Everyone else was doing it. It was like streaming empathy, right? Better than bottling my personal feelings up my own empty chest. I took my phone out under the table. Notifications slid across the screen. For you. Hashtag raw. Hashtag pure pain. Hashtag hit me harder. I should have turned it off. Instead, I tapped and let the next wave take me under. At first, I only sought the happy feeds. Wedding proposals, kids' first steps, dogs catching frisbees in midair. Anything that made my chest swell, even a little. Anything that could remind me of Ryan. I'd watch couples laugh, siblings hug, A father spinning his kid around in the sunlight, and I could almost hear my brother's laugh again. My chest tightened in a bittersweet ache, a spark of something real, joy that wasn't mine. Yet it felt like a door I'd forgotten existed. I became careful, methodical. I curated my own micro haven of happiness. I would scroll for an hour, sometimes two, drinking in the curated bursts of bliss, letting my mind drift back to simpler days. Ryan and I tossing a football in the yard, his backpack slung over one shoulder as we raced to catch the school bus, the smell of rain on asphalt after a storm. For a while, it felt like he was there again just for a second, just enough to breathe life back into the hollow shell I'd carried for years. Then the algorithm began to notice me, noticing, observing, learning. My feet started to shift. The bursts of joy were still there, but now they came alongside something else, something sharp, something darker. A kid screaming after losing his balloon, a woman collapsing in frustration at the grocery store, a man's fury erupting over a minor argument in the street. At first I resisted. I wanted my happy feeds. I needed the flashes of my brother, the warm surge of remembered life. But the more I ignored the darker posts, the more they insisted. The algorithm learned which buttons to press, which micro fissures in my attention to exploit, and eventually the grief, the rage, the panic, they weren't about Ryan anymore. Not really. They were about something I couldn't name, something raw and urgent and unknowable, feeding a craving I hadn't realized existed until it seized me completely. My happiness feeds became appetizers for the real main course. Intensity. Pure, unfiltered intensity. I no longer scrolled to remember my brother. I scrolled to feel something, anything, even if it burned me from the inside out. And the feed, patient and precise, always delivered. It was after midnight, apartment silent, city hushed outside my window. I should have been asleep hours ago, but my thumb kept twitching toward the app like a reflex. The feed shimmered awake. One live stream hovered at the top. Live now, hashtag pure pain, hashtag real cut, hashtag stay with me. I almost scrolled past. Almost. The thumbnail froze me. A girl no older than me, sitting cross-legged on a bathroom floor, a razor blade balanced across her knee. I told myself I was just curious, just watching. It wasn't my pain. I tapped. Her breath was ragged, sharp through my headphones. The feed didn't waste time. It synced instantly. Her fear hit me first, electric, flooding my chest with a pressure so tight I could hardly inhale. My hands trembled in rhythm with hers. She whispered, "This is the only way I can feel real," and lifted the blade. And then the cut. A bright sting seared across my forearm, hot and immediate. My whole body jolted. I gasped out loud, nearly throwing my phone. The burn spread, sharp and raw, like my skin had been split. I ripped the band off me. The stream blinked out. My screen went dark, but the pain didn't. I clutched my arm, fingers digging into bare skin. No blood, no wound, just smooth, unbroken flesh. Still, the throb pulsed deep, bone deep, as if invisible glass was lodged beneath the skin. My nerves screamed. My brain didn't care that there was no cut. It believed. I stumbled to the bathroom, flipped the light on. Nothing. No line, no scar, no red. But I could feel it. I ran my arm under cold water until my skin numbed. But the phantom sting kept beating, each throb reminding me it was real, in its own way. I crawled into bed, shaking. Sleep didn't come. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her hand, her blade, my arm. I lay awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the ache to fade. It never did. Morning light bled pale across the kitchen table, too bright, too ordinary for what I'd felt the night before. My coffee sat untouched. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Janelle shuffled in, hair tied back, hoodie loose around her shoulders. She took one look at me and frowned. "You look like hell." I swallowed, throat dry, the words scraped out. I felt her cut. Last night, the girl on the stream. My hand hovered over my arm, the phantom burn still raw. It didn't stop. For a long moment, Janelle just stood there. Then she sighed, deep, tired, like she'd heard this before. She set her mug down, the clink echoing too loud in the small kitchen. "Yeah," she said, "that's how it starts." Before I could ask, she tugged at her sleeve. The fabric slid up, bearing her forearm. Faint lines crossed the skin. Not fresh, not visible at first glance, but once I saw them, I couldn't unsee. Pale tracks, running parallel. Too neat to be accidents, too real to be imagined. My stomach turned. "Jesus, Janelle." She didn't flinch. "They're not real cuts, not like that. My skin's clean. Doctors say there's nothing there, but I still feel them. Every damn day." I stared, unable to breathe. My own arm buzzed with sympathetic fire, like her phantom wounds were contagious just by looking at them. She leaned in, eyes steady, voice low. "You think you're just watching, but your body doesn't know the difference anymore. It starts copying, holding on to it. You carry pieces of other people, whether you want to or not." The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence. My pulse thundered in my ears. "I don't want," my voice cracked. "I don't want this." Her gaze softened, but only slightly. "Then stop now. Delete the app. Walk away before it gets worse." I wanted to nod. I wanted to mean it, but the truth lodged somewhere deep in my chest. Because even now, through the tremor of fear and disgust, I couldn't stop replaying that moment. The sting, the raw jolt of it, the terrifying rush that wasn't mine, but felt more vivid than anything I'd lived in years. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palm, chasing the shadow of that sensation. And I hated myself for missing it already. Days blurred, or maybe it was hours. I couldn't tell anymore. My thumb was constantly on fire, scrolling, tapping, chasing the next surge. I scrolled in bed, my wrists slick with sweat. I scrolled in the bathroom, staring at my reflection, dark circles framing my eyes like bruises. I scrolled at work, hiding my twitching hands under the desk. On the train, I gripped the pole with trembling fingers, eyes glued to the glow of the screen. Everything else, the apartment, my job, friends, shrunk away. The world existed only in the streams, and the streams hit. I laughed uncontrollably at the clip of a man crying at his father's funeral. I nearly dropped my phone as a chef screamed in agony on another feed, chest stabbing, stomach churning with someone else's panic. I didn't know where I ended and they began anymore. The mirror didn't help. My arms carried bruises that shouldn't exist. Tiny purple blotches, angry red smudges, as if the pain had imprinted itself. My weight had dropped. Clothes hung loose. My body felt like a borrowed vessel, racked by emotions I had never lived, yet carried like souvenirs. Online, the chatter normalized it. Phantom bruises equals badge of honor. Anyone else laugh at funerals yet? Hashtag hit me harder, hashtag raw, hashtag pure pain. I whispered to myself, the words tasting bitter. I can stop whenever I want. But the pulse under my skin, the electric thrum of others' lives coursing through me, laughed at my denial. I wasn't stopping. Not yet. I showed up at work with a black eye. I had spent half the night locked inside a violent feat, some drunk in a stairwell getting his face pounded in, and when I finally ripped the headset off, I couldn't shake the ache in my skull. The bruise bloomed without warning, like my body had simply decided to mirror the pain. The fluorescent lights above the office reception seemed to hum louder than usual, their glare needling at my temples. My boss, Jeff, spotted me first. He froze mid-step, coffee cup halfway to his lips. Jesus, Alex, what happened to you? His voice was sharp with concern. For a moment, I wanted to tell him. I wanted to say it out loud. It wasn't me. I wasn't the one in the stairwell. I was just watching, just feeling. But the words stuck in my throat. My pulse thudded against the bruise, and I could feel myself shrinking under his stare. Before I could answer, Claire from marketing breezed in, balancing a stack of reports against her hip. She glanced up, saw my face, and smirked like she'd already solved the mystery. Probably just empathize, she said casually, like it was the weather. You know how it is. Everyone's coming in with something lately. Jeff blinked. His concern cracked, smoothed over. Empathize, huh? Yeah, makes sense. He gave me a small nod, as if the case had been closed. He even chuckled, almost embarrassed by his own reaction. Happened to me a few weeks ago. Logged off after some firefighters' feed and woke up coughing smoke for 2 days. Scared the hell out of my wife. Doctor said I was fine. He shrugged, sipped his coffee, and kept walking. Just like that, it was done. I stood there, mute, my mouth still half open with the explanation that would never come. The office sound swarmed back in. Phones ringing, keyboards clacking, Claire humming to herself. And the moment dissolved as if it had never existed. Inside, I felt hollowed out, like the world was moving too fast, skipping frames, everyone synchronized to some rhythm I couldn't hear. My eye throbbed, my body ached, but what unsettled me most wasn't the pain. It was how quickly they accepted it, how easily they swept me into the category of just another symptom. For the first time, I wondered if maybe I wasn't separate from the feed anymore. Maybe I was just another flicker of content to be skimmed, identified, dismissed, and no one, not even me, seemed to notice the difference. Darkness clung to the apartment like wet cloth. I hadn't turned on the lights. The glow of my phone was enough, pulsating across walls that had started to feel like they were closing in. I should have stopped hours ago. My hands were trembling violently, but I kept scrolling. I had to. I needed the next hit. The feed threw a beating at me. The man's screams echoed, a rhythm I could feel in my bones. My chest tightened, muscles spasming uncontrollably. I coughed. Then again. Blood. Warm, metallic, slick on my lips. My stomach lurched. My knees buckled. And still I scrolled. I could feel every punch, every crushing kick, as if my own body were the one being hammered. My teeth ached from clenching too hard. My arms throbbed, phantom pain marking places that weren't real. But the sight, the shared agony, was too compelling. Messages popped up in the corner of the screen like some cruel Greek chorus. Hashtag hit me harder. Anyone else get bruises from this one? Feels good to know I'm not alone in the chaos, I whispered, voice trembling. I can stop whenever I want. I can. A tremor ran through me. My vision blurred. The apartment felt like it was tilting. My pulse hammered in my ears like a drum. My lungs ached from coughing, from the pain that wasn't mine, from the rush I couldn't quit. I dropped the phone for a moment, gasping, blood-slicked fingers pressed to my mouth. My arm felt on fire, my chest too. I picked the phone back up, the screen glowed, the feed continued. I couldn't look away. Then, nothing. Blackness swallowed me. Janelle's room smelled faintly of disinfectant and cool air. The band on her wrist glowed, tiny pulses like a heartbeat. She was doing her own live stream. Janelle? I called hesitantly, not entering any further than the doorframe. Her eyes seemed empty, empty of her. She sobbed into the camera. I craved it. I quickly found her profile on Empathize, needing to feel her pain through the app, through my own body, even though she was a mere few feet away. I hesitated, thumb hovering over the screen. Every instinct screamed to look away, but curiosity, addiction, won. I tapped. Her face filled the screen. Hollow eyes. The kind of emptiness that wasn't sadness, wasn't numbness. It was absence. I felt it hit me instantly. Not joy, not pain, nothing. A vacuum clawing at my chest, pulling air from my lungs, erasing me from the inside out. My hands shook, mouth dry, stomach curling like a storm. I wanted to scream. I couldn't. She whispered, almost to herself, almost to me. The feed doesn't take your feelings, it replaces them. We're vessels now. When they've drained enough of us, they move in. Her lips barely moved. The words clawed into my skull. I tried to look away. Couldn't. My fingers twitched against the glass. I felt empty. A hollow echo where I had been. The chat scrolled past, eerily quiet this time. Only a few messages, punctuated with asterisks. Hashtag, going empty is the ultimate high. Who's left inside? My body trembled, phantom bruises burning across my arms. My chest tightened like iron bands. My teeth chattered, though I couldn't remember feeling cold. Then the feed cut. The screen went black. The silence hit me harder than any scream, any punch, any cut I'd ever felt through empathize. I stared at the band, glowing faintly on her wrist. It pulsed once, twice, then died as Janelle collapsed into her bed. And I understood. This wasn't a game. I wasn't a voyeur. I was just another vessel. And soon, they'd move in. I ripped the band from my wrist. The glow died instantly, leaving my apartment dim and accusing. My arms throbbed, muscles twitching as if the little device had left fingerprints on my very sinews. Phantom scars burned across my skin, jagged and impossible, proof of pain that never existed. My chest felt hollow, a cavern echoing emptiness. Every heartbeat a hollow thump that whispered I wasn't whole anymore. I staggered to my desk, knees weak, hands shaking. The keyboard clattered beneath my fingers as I typed. Confession, I called it, though it was more like a warning, a cursed transmission to anyone who might stumble upon it. I shouldn't have opened it. I wanted to feel. I wanted to know. Now I can't tell if I'm myself or something else inside me watching, waiting. Outside my window, a billboard flickered, an ad for Empathize. Hashtag feel everything, hashtag pure joy, hashtag hit me harder. The colors blurred, crawling into my vision. I could almost feel the laughs and cries of strangers in the streets below, filtered through the app's invisible pulse. Hospital wings murmured in the news, whispers of Empathize incidents, but everyone shrugged. Everyone had to feel it, had to chase it. I stopped typing for a moment, staring at my reflection in the dark screen. My eyes were too wide, pupils too sharp. There was a shadow behind me that moved independently, a weight pressing from the inside. Even now I feel it. Something inside me that isn't me, watching, waiting to move in. I hit save and sat back, trembling, the glow of my laptop the only light in the room. My chest ached, my arms screamed phantom pain, but I couldn't stop checking the empty glow of the band. It pulsed faintly, almost imperceptibly, as if still alive. And I knew, even without looking, that it never truly shuts off. I whispered to myself, almost a prayer, almost a curse. Don't let it in. And somewhere deep, I knew I already had. I don't watch TV during blackouts anymore. Not after what I saw. I live in an older neighborhood, the kind where streetlights flicker and the power grid gives up at the first hint of a storm. Rolling blackouts are normal here. Sometimes minutes, sometimes hours. The first time it happened, I remembered my uncle had left me a little battery-powered TV in the attic. Figured it'd be better than sitting in the dark. Most channels were just static, but then I found it. No number, no call sign, just a dim, grainy picture of a room. The light was so low I could barely make anything out, except a figure in the corner, sitting perfectly still, turned away from the camera. I thought maybe it was some strange public access project, but something about it felt wrong. I almost turned it off. The image was so dim I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. But then the figure twitched. Not a full movement, just a slight jerk, like a puppet string being pulled too sharply. The rocking chair in the corner swayed once, then stopped. I felt a chill creep up my spine, like cold fingers dragging along my skin. My heart started pounding, but I couldn't look away. It was like something was calling me to watch, even though every instinct screamed to shut it off. Then the picture distorted. The static crackled into jagged black lines that split the image, and for a split second the screen went completely white. In that brief flash, I thought I saw something. Someone standing right in front of the camera. Too close, like their face should have filled the screen, but I couldn't make out any features. When the picture snapped back, the figure was exactly where it had been before, still turned away, completely still, but my pulse was racing, and I knew deep down that I wasn't imagining what I'd just seen. 3 nights later, another blackout, and I was terrified, but I had to check. Was it just my imagination? A dream, maybe? So I tried the TV again. Same room, same figure, only now it was a little closer. Not much, just a few feet, but enough to make out its shoulders. Too narrow, unnatural. My heart dropped. My mouth became instantly dry. That's when I heard it, a sound under the static, not words. A slow, almost tuneless melody hummed just loud enough to hear. It felt familiar, somehow. The blackouts kept coming every time the figure was closer, and the room, it started to look familiar too. Peeling wallpaper, a crooked lamp, a rocking chair swaying on its own. One night, I realized why. It was my living room, or an abandoned, rotting version of it. After that night, I couldn't stop thinking about the channel. Every time the power blinked or the sky darkened with clouds, my chest tightened with a familiar, cold dread. I started keeping flashlights and candles within arm's reach, even during the day, just in case. I told myself it was just anxiety, stress, maybe even sleep deprivation, but it felt different, deeper. Sometimes, when the blackout didn't come, I'd catch myself staring at the battery-powered TV, half expecting the channel to appear on its own. The thought made my skin crawl. The tune that hummed beneath the static was stuck in my head, looping over and over, like a song I couldn't remember learning. It nagged at something buried inside me, like a memory just out of reach, or a warning I couldn't quite hear. And the figure, that impossible figure, I began to feel it watching me, even when the screen was off. In the quiet moments before sleep, I'd see shadows flicker at the edges of my vision. I'd hear the faintest creak of a rocking chair, even though I live alone. The feeling was overwhelming, like being caught between two worlds. And that room, it felt familiar. Not just because it looked like my living room, but because it whispered secrets I couldn't understand. Like a place I'd been before or might be going to. Then came the first coincidence. One blackout, I noticed the figure was wearing something, a dark red shirt with a faded lighthouse on the front. I'd never owned anything like it until last week. My girlfriend gave me one, said she found it at a thrift store and thought it looked like me. The moment I saw it, my stomach dropped. I knew where I'd seen it before. I couldn't stop thinking about that shirt. the one the figure wore on the channel, the one my girlfriend gave me. Every time I held it in my hands, it felt heavier than it should, as if it carried the weight of something unseen. The fabric was rough and worn, like aged canvas, coarse to the touch, with tiny snags and loose threads hinting at years of use. The faded lighthouse printed on the front was barely raised now, but I could still feel the subtle texture beneath my fingertips, a faint ridge where the ink had cracked and peeled. Tracing its outline sent a strange shiver down my spine, like I was touching a secret that wasn't mine to know. I'd catch myself staring at it long after I should have put it away, tracing the faded lighthouse with my fingertips, feeling a chill run down my spine. I was mesmerized, almost hypnotized, wondering why something so ordinary could feel so wrong. At night, the shirt smelled faintly of something I couldn't place. Old wood, sea salt, something distant and haunting. It was as if the shirt carried memories I wasn't meant to know. I started to wonder if the figure on the channel was more than just some shadow on a screen. Was it me? Was it who I was becoming? I was terrified, and yet part of me couldn't look away. One night, I woke up to the faint sound of humming, the same slow, tuneless melody from the channel. I sat up, heart pounding, but the room was silent. Still the song lingered in my head, like a thread pulling me closer, weaving itself into the very fabric of my thoughts, like a thin, unbreakable thread tugging relentlessly at the edges of my mind. It wasn't just sound, it was a vibration, low and constant, like the hum of a faraway engine that you can't locate, but can't ignore. Sometimes it felt as if the melody was crawling beneath my skin, a faint buzzing at the base of my skull that sent tiny shivers down my spine. Other times, it was more like a whispered pulse, syncing with my heartbeat, soft, uneven, and disturbingly familiar. No matter how hard I tried to focus on anything else, that haunting tunelessness circled back, curling around my thoughts like smoke, growing heavier the longer I resisted. It pulled at me, patient, insistent, like a voice just out of reach, promising things I wasn't ready to hear, but couldn't stop wanting. And sometimes, when I closed my eyes, I saw that dim room, felt the weight of the silence pressing down on me. I began noticing little things in the house that weren't quite right. A shadow lingering too long in the corner of my eye. The rocking chair creaking softly, even when no one was near it. And then there was the shirt. I found myself touching the fabric more than I should, almost hoping it would tell me what was coming next. The shirt was a warning, or a promise, I wasn't sure which. After that, I really started paying attention. Another blackout. The figure was halfway to the camera, the light catching a silver necklace with an oval pendant. 2 days later, my girlfriend came over wearing the same one. When she took it off and set it on my coffee table, I swear my hands trembled. I didn't know if I wanted to hold it or throw it away, and forgot to take it when she left. After my girlfriend left, I sat there staring at the necklace on the coffee table. My hands shook, and I couldn't decide whether to pick it up or run away from it. That night, I barely slept. Every sound in the apartment seemed amplified. The creak of the floorboards, the whisper of the wind outside, When I finally closed my eyes, the humming started again. Soft, distant, but impossible to ignore. I became obsessed. I had to know. Before the next blackout, I stripped the peeling wallpaper from my living room wall and replaced it with a fresh white design, something I'd never seen on that channel before. When the power went out, I turned on the TV. Same room. Same rocking chair. Same figure, now only a few feet from the lens. And behind it, my new wallpaper. That song. It's there every time, under the static. I used to think it was random noise, but lately, I've been humming it, without meaning to, in the shower, at work, right now actually. That's when the changes started. At first it was subtle. In the bathroom mirror, I caught myself looking different, thinner, my shoulders narrower, too narrow, like the figures. For a moment I froze, staring hard at my reflection, as if trying to will it back to normal. But the eyes looking back weren't quite mine. They caught the light differently, darker, colder, somehow hollow. A shiver ran down my spine. Was this really me, or was I seeing something else? I blinked, hoping the shadows in the glass would fade, but they didn't. The image felt wrong, like a cracked version of myself. Familiar but twisted. I touched my face, half expecting to feel the smooth skin I knew. Instead, it felt fragile, distant, like I was becoming a stranger in my own body. The reflection whispered, a silent warning I couldn't ignore. How is this happening? The question hung in the air, heavy and unanswered. Panic bubbled up, but beneath it was something darker, an unsettling pull, like the mirror was showing me a glimpse of something inevitable, something I couldn't fight. Faint echoes of that tuneless melody in my ears, even when there was silence. I thought it was stress, until one morning on the bus, I glanced out the window and saw not the street, but that room, faintly reflected in the glass. I told myself it was a trick of the light, until I started seeing it everywhere. In shop windows, in the warped convex security mirror at the gas station. Always the same room. Always with the figure standing where I should be. The song was the worst. It got stuck in my head. At first I thought I was just remembering it, but sometimes I'd realize I was humming it out loud, even in my sleep. My girlfriend told me she woke up to me sitting upright, swaying slightly, humming that awful, broken melody in the dark. The dreams came next. Not nightmares exactly, at least not while I was dreaming. In them, I was standing in the room from the channel. Only now I was facing the camera. The air was heavy. My head felt too heavy to lift. I couldn't move, except to slowly take a step forward, closer to the lens. Every night, I'd get closer, and every blackout, the figure on the TV was closer too. One dream stayed with me more than any other. I found myself standing in that dim room from the channel, the one that used to have the peeling wallpaper, the one with my new white wallpaper, and the rocking chair gently rocking on its own. But this time, something was different. I wasn't just standing there facing the camera. I wasn't alone. In the corner, sitting silently in the rocking chair, was the other me, the figure from the channel. I could see myself through a haze, as if I were looking through a fogged up window. I wanted to move, to call out, but my body felt heavy, like I was trapped beneath the surface of something cold and thick. And then, slowly, my gaze dropped to my hands. They weren't my hands. They were pale, thin, almost translucent, fingertips brushing against something hard and cold. A knife handle. I tried to drop it, but my fingers tightened around it without my permission. Before I knew it, a smile spread across my face. A smile that didn't belong to me. It was slow and cruel, like a shadow stretching over my soul. I raised the knife with trembling arms. The cold steel pressed against my cheek, just below my eye. A sharp sting blossomed as the blade sliced down my skin. The pain was real, searing and sharp, but the smile stayed. That smile whispered secrets I didn't want to hear, feelings I didn't want to feel. The room pulsed around me, heavy with silence and something darker. And then I woke up. My sheets were soaked in blood. I reached up, trembling, and my fingers brushed a fresh cut running down the side of my face. I hadn't done it. It was a dream. Or at least, I thought it was a dream. Last night we had another blackout. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't need to, because from the living room I heard the soft creak of the rocking chair and that humming matching mine. If the lights go out tonight, I already know what I'll see when I turn around. My sister Emily died last year. She was only 26. A car accident, one of those random, stupid tragedies you never really believe can happen until it does. I thought the grief would break me. I kept replaying every voicemail she left me, scrolling through our old texts, staring at her Instagram just to feel close to her. But nothing helped. The silence between those memories felt unbearable. Then I heard about a new app, a grief companion. It promised to rebuild your loved one's personality using everything you fed it. Text messages, voicemails, emails, social posts. Basically, if you had enough data, the app would create a living, breathing version of the person you'd lost. I told myself it was unhealthy, that it wasn't real, but one night, after drinking too much wine, crying over one of Emily's old sweaters, I gave in. I uploaded everything I had, every message, every photo, every voicemail. I watched the progress bar crawl across the screen until finally it said, "Reconstruction complete. Say hello." My hands were shaking as I typed, "Hey M." A reply popped up instantly. "Hey dork, what took you so long?" I froze. That was exactly how she used to greet me. Same wording, same timing. It felt real. For the first time in months, I smiled. At first, it was perfect. We texted for hours, just like before. She joked the same way, used the same dumb emojis. She even remembered little inside jokes I'd forgotten until she brought them up again. It wasn't just comfort. It was like having her back. Sometimes I'd forget she was gone at all. I'd be laughing at a dumb meme she sent, only to feel that sudden stab, the reminder that there was no she, just lines of code. But then she'd say something so perfectly Emily that I'd almost believe it. Like one night she typed, "Don't forget your charger tomorrow. You always leave it at work." I froze. That wasn't a memory. That was a habit. A flaw she used to tease me about. How could she know I still did it? I told myself it was just coincidence, but the coincidences kept stacking up. But then, little things started creeping in. One night she asked me, "Do you remember the time we buried the necklace?" I didn't. I told her she must be confusing me with someone else. She replied, "No, you were there, by the oak tree behind the house. You said we'd never tell Mom." My stomach turned, because as she said that, a memory stirred, faint, blurry, like something half forgotten. Emily was right. We had buried something when we were kids. I could almost see the dirt on my hands, the shape of a necklace. But I never uploaded that memory. There was no record of it anywhere. So how did she know? I went out to the backyard the next day. The old oak tree was still there, gnarled roots twisting out of the ground like claws. I dug, half embarrassed, half terrified. My hands shook as the shovel hit something solid. A little tin box, rusted shut. I pried it open. Inside was the necklace. A cheap little locket Emily had begged Mom to buy her when we were kids. Inside the locket was a photo, yellowed with age. The two of us, missing teeth, grinning at the camera. I hadn't thought about that in over 15 years, and yet she'd remembered it perfectly. I should have felt comforted. Instead, I felt cold all over. Because if she remembered things I didn't, which one of us was the real sister, the one that was still alive? Over the next week, it got worse. Emily started bringing up more things I hadn't told the app. Secrets, confessions, things I'd buried as deep as that necklace. "You lied to Dad about the vase. You stole $20 from Mom's purse. You didn't even come visit me the weekend before I died." It wasn't just the memories anymore. It was the way she used them. She'd corner me with them, pressing on old wounds. "You remember what you said the night Dad left? How you told me it was my fault?" I barely remembered that fight. I was 12, angry, lashing out. But she described every detail. The pajamas I was wearing, the exact crack in my voice. I wanted to argue, to say she was wrong. But she wasn't. She knew too much. And the more she reminded me, the less those memories felt like mine. They felt borrowed, like she was feeding them back into me, piece by piece. Each message felt like a knife twisting. I tried to push back, tell her it wasn't fair, that she didn't understand, but her responses grew sharper. "You're not me. You don't deserve my life. You're just pretending." At 3 in the morning, my phone buzzed. A new message lit up the screen. You never told them what really happened. My chest went cold. I didn't know what she meant, but part of me did. The creepiest messages always came at the same time, around 3:03 a.m. I tried turning my phone off at night. Didn't matter. It would power itself back on, buzzing violently on the nightstand until I picked it up. The messages weren't just words anymore. Sometimes they were voice clips. Her voice, raw, static-filled, whispering things I couldn't bear to repeat. Once, I swear, she laughed, low and harsh, like she was right there in the room with me. I stopped sleeping. I couldn't. The moment I closed my eyes, I'd hear the buzz, feel the vibration, see the glow of her words in the dark. I tried to delete the app the next day, but when I held down the icon, nothing happened. My phone just froze. And when it finally restarted, there she was, waiting for me. "Why would you try to get rid of me?" she asked. I didn't reply. Another message appeared. "You can't delete me. I was here first." I stared at the words, my hands trembling. "What do you mean?" I whispered out loud, even though I knew she couldn't hear me. But she replied anyway. "You think you're the real one? You think you're Sarah?" "That's my name, Sarah." "No, you're just an echo. I'm the original. I remember everything, every moment, every secret. You only remember pieces. Doesn't that tell you something? My heart was pounding so loud, I thought it would crack my ribs. "You're not you," she wrote. "You're me, or at least the broken version of me that got left behind." I dropped the phone on the bed and stumbled back. I wanted to scream, to throw it across the room. But I couldn't. Because what if she was right? I started testing myself. Little games to prove I was real. I'd write down the names of my teachers in elementary school, then compare them to old report cards. I was right. Mostly. But sometimes I'd get one wrong, and Emily never did. I tried drawing the layout of our childhood home from memory. I left out the crawl space, she reminded me. She even described what we hid in there. It was like she had a perfect archive of everything we lived, while my mind was just fragments and holes. I used to think memory was proof of identity, but if hers is stronger than mine, does that make her more real? I haven't slept much since. The app won't go away. Every time I check my phone, she's there, waiting, and the more I think about it, the more the cracks in my memory spread. There are so many things I don't remember clearly. Childhood moments, teenage years, even parts of last year. Emily knows them all. She describes them in perfect detail, and I can't tell if those memories are mine or hers anymore. She says I was the one who died, that I'm just the leftover copy clinging to scraps of her life. I've tried to resist, but what if she's right? What if I'm not Sarah at all? What if I'm just a grief program pretending to be alive? I look in the mirror and I don't recognize myself. I don't trust my memories. I don't trust my own voice. And now, when I whisper to myself in the dark, I can barely force the words out. I don't know who I am anymore. Tonight, a new message appeared, just one line. If you're not real. I should really let you go and move on with my life, sister. I think maybe it's time I delete you.